Today is the 21st day of July, and we enter into our fourth section of this program, the fourth part of the program, broken up into half-hour, or generally half-hour sections. In the earlier section, I was talking about the ABC triangle of peace and violence. Sometimes you can call it the triangle of a healthy society as opposed to an ill society. And I was talking about this ABC triangle in which I was describing point B, which is a point of behavior, either direct behavior or indirect behavior, but it's still dealing with behavior. Now, at point A, on the left lower corner of this triangle, is where we deal with attitudes or awareness or assumptions that people make. It's part of the deep culture of the expectations that people have. It may also be found in their religion or in their thought processes, their principles, their educational background, or the values that they have been raised with. And so what happens at point B is greatly influenced by this point A. But there's also the other side of the triangle, that other foot of the triangle, and that is point C. And that stands for conditions or contradictions, so that the society talks about, for example, the rights of all people, and yet they tell the people of color that you need to sit in the back of the bus, and you are prohibited from drinking from certain water fountains or going to certain bathrooms or washing your clothes at white-only establishments, and all these other things about going to what kind of restaurants. And so the discrimination that occurs within the society are all contradictions to principles that we are led to believe were supposed to be universal principles. And so when the society begins with either those contradictory conditions or other conditions such as lack of employment, lack of housing, lack of appropriate health care, those are also conditions, when added to A, will result in a behavior of a people or behavior of that nation. So point A does not expose itself or does not develop just in and of itself. It's like a volcano. It's not at the top of the volcano that one looks at to determine what is occurring, but it actually occurs at the bottom of the volcano from A, point A, or point C, or a combination of the two. And so, as our last caller had called and talked about these contradictions within our society, within our community, and it can resolve itself by or result by the kinds of action that you saw in Colorado. That can happen. So it can be either point A or point C, which results in point B. Point B does not come out in and of itself. It's always a result. It's that same, I guess, Buddhist concept, or others would call it cause and effect, cause and effect. If there's an effect, there had to be a cause for it. Things do not simply come about. The other point I wanted to remark with regards to Michael, who was our last caller, was with regards to, and I think he sort of just touched on it and moved on, but I want to concentrate on it. The principles that I am trying to, or at least I believe that I am trying to express, are not necessarily Native Hawaiian principles, but these are human principles. Principles of self-determination are human principles. As we apply it to the circumstance of the Native Hawaiians, as we apply it to the circumstance of the Hawaiian nation, those are principles that apply specifically, but they are general human principles that have developed not only in Hawaii through Paea Kamehameha's statements or other statements developed from our kupuna, but they are principles developed in international law. And I've taken specifically from the international law as developed through the American Revolution, which is a principle of the right to self-determination from external forces. And then you had the revolution, the French Revolution, which was more establishment of the principles of international law, the right of internal control, internal self-determination. So, yes, we can have non-native folks standing up for the right of native Hawaiians. And when you apply the principles to the Hawaiian nation itself, that itself is not necessarily a native Hawaiian issue, or not exclusively a native Hawaiian issue, because we have had many people who just as appropriately engaged, both from the side of correcting their colonial nation to those who have the right to be citizens and nationals of the Hawaiian nation. What do I mean by that? There was a friend. He would remain a friend if he had not passed away. And he had been born in China of missionary family, Christian missionaries. And in his retirement, and this was not DeWitt Barnett, but our mutual friend, whose name I have forgotten now, who moved to Hawaii and in his later years stayed in Hawaii and was very supportive of us in the Hawaiian sovereignty causes. And when he decided that he would not stand for the judge as he walked in and out of the courtroom, as the rest of us who were defendants and myself as the attorney for the defendants refused to acknowledge the jurisdiction of the court. And he shared with me a letter that he had written back to his grandchildren. He showed me a copy of it. He says, "Poka, I want you to see this letter." And in the letter it said that, no, I am not a Hawaiian, not trying to pretend to be a Hawaiian, and would not apply for citizenship in the Hawaiian nation. I am an American. But as an American, it is my responsibility to stand firm for the principles that the country was developed upon. And the principle of self-determination should be extended to the Hawaiian people, just as it should be extended to all peoples. And for that purpose, I participate and I support the Hawaiian movement. And so he was a person who saw beyond the issue of race. And I think it would be the same for Martin Luther King. By coincidence, he was among those people who suffered as a black person from that particular history. But he was able to go even beyond that and see it just as a matter of coincidence that he was of that particular race, but that principle had to be established. The principle of the right of people to human treatment, to civil rights, to human rights. And that's what we should all be striving to do, to reach that larger sense of principle and see beyond our particular interest. Okay. All right. Our telephone number is 524-1080. Let's go to our next caller. Aloha caller. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, evening, Polka.
Yes. Good evening.
Yeah, you were talking about the Mariara race.
Yes.
I watched the last debate on KHON TV2.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed Kirk Cardwell was asked a question about rail. And he said something about hiding the rail behind buildings and planting trees to, give them better, what you call...
environmental,
yeah.
Yeah, impact.
I said to myself, what an answer to give, but is he going to hire David Copperfield to do illusion and hide the rail from everybody? It's ridiculous. Who do you think out of the three people running for mayor is best qualified for the Hawaiian nation to understand what these folks are going and the cause and whatnot?
Of the three?
Yeah.
I would think Ben Cayetano would be closer to an understanding and an appreciation of what we have been talking about.
Right.
I have not had the opportunity to specifically sit and talk with Ben about these matters. He had taken notice before he became governor, and he had expressed his concern and support for the kinds of stuff that we were doing in Makua.
Right.
And so, he's been in Hawaii for a very long time. I guess just as much as Kirk Caldwell. Of course, Ben is a little older.
Right.
And who's that? Peter Carlisle actually arrived in Hawaii. I think it was after he graduated from law school,
right,
and then went to the prosecuting attorney's office. But of the three, I would I would believe that Ben would be closer to the Hawaiian cause, but not necessarily that he would support or understand. So I wouldn't want to go that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by him being an attorney and you being an attorney, probably folks can collaborate.
Well, Peter Carlisle is also an attorney.
Yeah, but when he was asked the question 2 years ago, do you know where Lu'u'u'alei is? Couldn't answer that
Yeah,
question.
that's right.
Okay,
You
Boca,
remember
take care.
that? Okay, thanks for
Aloha.
calling. Aloha. All right. Okay, we've had quite a bit of discussions here, and I had been talking about the ABC triangle. And yes, contradictions within a society are very important to see, and they do affect, I think, the overall health of that community. Let's go to our next caller. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Poka.
Yes. Hi.
I wanted to talk to you about the cell of Lanai. I don't know. I have this funny feeling that it's connected to the rail. And isn't it true that Castle and Cook owned, I believe, 80% or 90% of the land when they sold it to Ellison?
I believe.
Right? But this is the same Castle and Cook that's building Coral Ridge, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So, in order for Castle and Cook to produce homes or build homes, they need money. So, what do? They sell Lanai to Ellison. They get the money, and to actually fund in building Coral Ridge. And we all know that Coral Ridge and as well as Ho'opili are ridership support for the train. So, I see that connection to that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that sale, but what do you think about that? It is because ever since they rushed to build the rail, I noticed all these issues coming up, like the sale of Lanai and the LUC, O'King, Ho'opili, and Coral Ridge, and the bus route cuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just seen a lot of things.
You see it all related.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it gets me a little bit paranoid. and I don't know. I'm just fitting the puzzle right now about all of this situation. But I really think that the Lanai cell has something to do with the train.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me see if I can respond. Have you seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah, but I kind of forgot. I saw so many movies I kind of forgot.
This was a guy who won. Yeah, he won the Nobel Prize for Economics. And what he would do is he would draw all these different connections. Well, anyway, he won the Nobel Prize when he studied the pigeons and the pecking order and the movements here and there. And he developed a new theoretical model for economics. I guess it looks chaotic, but he was able to make some sense out of chaos, especially when you look at how pigeons walk and their direction and all that stuff. Really makes no sense to many of us, but he was able to track it. But anyway, in that movie, you will see many of his charts, and he's moving from one thing to another thing to another thing. And then when you went into his house that he had in the back of his main house, and he had all his drawings and his charts, and it in essence showed how his mind would operate and how he connected this to that and this to that and all that kinds of stuff. That is not unusual for people who are called crazy, and they are diagnosed by psychiatrists as being crazy. The ability to make these connections. My very, very good friend who had passed on, and as I looked through his what do you call it? His notes, he had the same thing, and he would develop family relationships, and he would go back to the 11th century and trace all these family relationships and where they are today. So Castle and Cook, and he would go back into the Castle family, the Cook family, and the rest. For me, that was somewhat extreme, like The Beautiful Mind. But people's minds have this ability to make connections. So, yeah, you're going crazy, but I don't think you're unusual. We're all going crazy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's but I think just a lot of things just pop up since the rush to build the rail.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, not just that, all this other stuff. There's also this. Well, I don't want to get into it. It's you heard about the bio safety lab that they plan to build at Kalaloa?
Yes.
So you heard about, yeah.
Yes.
I think there's a connection to that train too, but
okay.
I don't want to get all mixed up in that.
Okay, let me say this to cover all of the stuff that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Especially in politics, there's no such thing as coincidental. So
it's pretty much fact.
So as you draw this activity to that relationship and how it affects this and that, I don't know, and so I will not verify or I will not support your conclusion, but nor would I say that you have reached a point of crazy yet. I would encourage your thinking. When you talk about Castle and Cook and the sale of Lanai, and the use of those funds for not Ho'opili but Koa
I can't hear you. I think you died out.
Oh, okay. When you talk about, well, I tell you what, because we don't have too much time, I can put you on hold, or you can listen to the radio, and I will try to express my thoughts. How's that?
I get off the air.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling. Take care. And what I was saying was that the connection between Castle and Cook's sale of the island of Lanai, or the vast majority of that land there, and the development of Koa Ridge, I cannot say that it is related, because Castle and Cook is no longer the local Big Five that it was back in the 50s and to a certain extent to the 60s, because they have become really a transnational organization with investments in many different places, and their relationship with Doe Corporation, which has bananas from all over the world and pineapple from all over the place. These are now multinational corporations, although in our minds we still see them as local, one of the Big Five or Big 25 corporations. So I don't know what that relationship is, but there may be a relationship. The effect of rail and the bus scheduling, I think there are relationships, although I don't know how to trace that relationship. And those people in power are simply saying, well, it has no relationship between the scheduling and all that stuff. It's simply because we don't have enough money. And yet, when you talk about money, there's a lot of money to throw away in rail and a lot of money to waste, and still some resistance to even auditing those expenses, especially for public relations. That has been the bill has finally been passed. So whenever you deal with an entity which has purse strings, or with a particular pocket, and you have different things that needs to be financed from that pocket, and then they try to isolate this and say that, well, this subject is separate, it has nothing to do with that subject. I don't believe it. And what Ben Cayetano is saying is that, well, then I'll get the excess funds from the 0.5% of general excise tax. I go to the legislature and ask them, hey, let me throw it back, because we really need to fix the water system, we need an improved bus system, we need this, and that. So it all ties in. I see it as what I call my spider web approach, that the society is built like a spider web, whether it's a kid in school who misbehaves or throws a tantrum, and so in that particular classroom, or among those people that he's fighting with, you shake the web, but the reverberation of that web affects the administration, affects PE classes, affects math class, and it circulates through that school, and then it circulates into the community, into the home, and you may have different people getting involved, either families getting involved and disagreeing, or many other things. But every movement on that web will affect that web. So imagine all these reverberations going on a large spider web. This is what a society is. It's a very vibrant connection or interrelationship of human activities as well as natural activities interacting with one another. So as to, is there a connection between one and the other? There is. How it connects, I don't know, and I'm very careful about what I conclude with regards to those connections. Okay, this brings us to just about 5 more minutes on this program, and I was wondering if there was any further discussion on the ABC triangle. I think Michael raised a very interesting question about the contradictions. If the society allows these contradictions to continue to persist, then you will come out with behaviors or will come out with an unhealthy society. For example, we allow the contradiction of the equality of all men, which should include women, to persist for too long, not only with regards to race, but race was very important, not only with regards to the African Americans, but also the Chinese Americans, and also the Japanese Americans, and also the other hyphenated Americans, the Spanish Americans, and the rest. And that contradiction continues to this very day, sometimes not necessarily in law, or not only in law, but in the conduct that we have within our relationships, within our schools, within our communities, in the shopping centers and the rest. You continue to allow these contradictions to occur, to violate the basic principles that we say is what the moral code is supposed to be. And what you do is you degrade the health of that community, of that society. Sometimes it doesn't erupt into violent actions, and other times it will. When people become so outraged at these contradictions, then it resolves itself into these violations. If you look at it from a broader world perspective, is this not precisely what we have attributed the 9/11 attacks by Al-Qaeda, by Osama bin Laden? If it is true that it was a result of his bringing about that action, what was his reason for it? Well, his reason was that, and he had stated this, if you are asking why 9/11 occurred, look at what the United States have done when they talk about the equality of all people, and yet they have imposed themselves upon the Islamic faith, they have imposed themselves upon the people of the Middle East, and you have to expect that they will be attacked just as much as they have attacked others. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying he was correct or he was wrong, but what he was saying, what he was trying to address is that when you have contradictions in the society that talks about these high values that the society should be led by, and then the hypocrisy of a nation that is supposed to be the leader of that kind of values contradicts those values and begins to bomb and in other ways intervene into the lifestyle of other people, you have to expect these things. So if you then ask yourself, what happened? Why are we in this case? Why do they hate us? Then it's really, the question is really a failure to do that kind of introspection that is so necessary if you really believe that you are an intelligent people leading an intelligent society ahead. Okay, enough of that. This, I guess, brings us to the end of this program. We'll continue tomorrow morning with either some of the subjects that we talked about or with whatever comes to mind tomorrow morning. I do want to talk more about rail and about Syria and what dangerous things are going on there. Sort of a forewarning of what can be occurring in or will be occurring in the society very soon.
Kaulana pua o Hawaii, ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anunu me ka paka